Welcome back, grades 7 and 8. In this video, as we continue to explore more about the elements on the periodic table, we're going to zoom in on one of those elements. And we're going to start seeing how some of that information from the periodic table can really help us to understand a little bit more about that specific element or that specific atom. So to start off, we're going to take a look at just a random element here. This one that I have up is gold on the periodic table. Again, we talked a little bit before about how or why, some of the reasons behind why its symbol might not seem to match what it is, but we're going to kind of unpack what some of these different numbers mean, what they represent. And then later on this week, we're going to start unpacking a little bit more about how we can use that along with what we learned in our last video, and we can start putting all those pieces together to get a more complete understanding of what this particular element is. So first of all, let's take a look at our top number there. The very top number on an element in the periodic table, we call that the atomic number. And you'll notice that for those ones, they are in order. So if we start in the top left corner of the periodic table, kind of work our way across, then move on to the next row, the next row, the next row, and the next row, always moving from left to right. You'll see that they count up. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, all the way up to 118. And that's called the atomic number for the periodic table. It is the most defining feature of that atom. We're going to see in a little bit later on what that actually represents for the atom itself. Next, we have the element or the atomic symbol. This is the 1 or 2 letter code that represents that specific element. So for this one, we have AU, capital A, lowercase u. And that symbol represents gold. So anytime you see that, you know that that's the element, that's the atom that it's referring to. Underneath that, there we just have the element or the atomic name. This is the one that we call it by. This is the one that we understand it to be. Although when we're writing different molecules, we're going to use the element or the atomic symbol above there, but it's important for you to know and to be able to see how the element or the atomic name matches with the element or atomic symbol. Because sometimes it's obvious, hydrogen being H, helium being He, lithium Li, but other times it's not, like gold being Au. Or silver being Ag, or sodium being Na, or any of those other less obvious elements when their atomic symbol don't seem to match up with their atomic name. So it's important to kind of know some of those different ones as well. And then finally at the bottom here, you see a really odd number, and that's the atomic mass. If you remember in our last video, we talked about how the atomic mass is how heavy the atom is or how much mass it has. And it's kind of hard for us sometimes to understand a little bit about units that are that incredibly small. And so they have their own unit of measurement that we call AMUs, that stand for atomic mass units. And we'll see in a little while why we kind of have a weird decimal usually for that mass. And there's a reason for that. We'll talk about that a little bit later on. It doesn't mean that there are part things inside of it, but there is some change in different atoms, but we'll unpack that a little bit more later on when we start getting into different kind of types of a specific kind of atom or different isotopes. So here's our periodic table, and as we've unpacked before, the periodic table includes all those elements from 1 to 118. And you'll notice that if we start at the top, we start off with number 1 here. H is the atomic symbol for hydrogen, and its atomic mass is right underneath that. If we go all the way across, the next element is element number 2. Then we go to the next row, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Next row, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18. Next row, 19, 20, and it goes on and on and on. The only other sections that we've unpacked a little bit before is that we have these lanthanide and actinide series that are down here that are kind of removed from the chart, but really they should be kind of a continuation from barium to from 56 to 71 and from 88 to 103. So they should kind of slot right in that spot there. Well, grade 7 and 8, that is it for today. A bit of a shorter video unpacking that. In our next video, though, that we're going to take a look at, we are going to see how we can use this and what we learned in our previous video to really start reading and understanding some of these numbers as they relate to the atom itself, particularly in the number of protons, neutrons, and electrons in a given atom. Have a great rest of your day, grade 7 and 8.